My husband is in Paris with his lover while I'm at our daughter's wedding. He texted, stuck at a conference, can't make it. What he doesn't know is, I'm the one who paid for his trip, and the private investigator sending me photos of his conference. Tomorrow his world crumbles. The blue glow of my laptop illuminated the darkness of our home office at 2:17 a.m. I hadn't planned to be awake, but wedding jitters, not for myself but for my daughter, had jolted me from sleep. I decided to tackle Emma's wedding budget spreadsheet, hoping the mundane task would lull me back to drowsiness. That's when I saw it. An email notification flickered across my screen. Thank you for your reservation at Le Grand Paris. The confirmation wasn't addressed to me but to Dylan, my husband of 27 years. The same Dylan who had texted me hours earlier about the terrible Boston weather delaying his technology conference registration. I blinked, certain I was misreading something in my sleep-deprived state. The email showed a 5-night stay in a luxury suite, spanning our daughter's entire wedding weekend. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as a chill crawled up my spine. 27 years of marriage had taught me to trust my instincts, and something was terribly wrong. It must be spam, I whispered to myself, but the reservation details were too specific. I clicked through to our shared cloud storage where we kept travel documents. There it was, a folder labeled Boston Conference containing a flight itinerary. Not to Boston but to Paris. Before we begin, I want to welcome you to a story about betrayal, resilience, and reclamation. If you've ever felt underestimated or overlooked, Sydney's journey from silent partner to powerful CEO will resonate deeply. Consider subscribing. It's completely free and ensures you never miss these stories of transformation and empowerment. Now let's witness how one discovery can change everything. The house felt suddenly airless. I opened the window, letting the cool night breeze wash over me as I struggled to make sense of this discovery. Why would Dylan lie about where he was going? And more troublingly, how could he plan to miss Emma's wedding? Our only daughter, whose hand he'd promised to walk down the aisle in just 5 days. Sleep forgotten, I dove deeper. If Dylan had lied about this trip, what else might he be hiding? The question led me to our company's financial records, something I hadn't scrutinized in months. As co-founder of Montgomery Advanced Systems, I'd stepped back from daily operations to coordinate Emma's wedding, trusting Dylan to handle things temporarily. That trust evaporated as spreadsheet after spreadsheet revealed alarming discrepancies. 6 transfers totaling $3.7 million had gone to an offshore entity called Horizon Holdings in the past month alone. I'd never heard of this company, yet there was Dylan's electronic signature authorizing each transaction. My hands trembled as reality sank in. These weren't simple accounting errors. This was deliberate concealment. My phone rang, startling me so badly I knocked over my cold tea. Frank Winters's name flashed on the screen. Our accountant calling at 3 in the morning could only mean one thing. Disaster. Sydney, I'm sorry to call so late. His voice sounded thin, weaker than when I'd last seen him. The cancer treatments were taking their toll. Frank, are you all right? No, not really. A painful cough interrupted him. But that's not why I'm calling. There's something you need to know and I can't keep it from you any longer. My stomach knotted as Frank explained how Dylan had approached him weeks ago with documents for a company sale, to French investors. Our company. My company. The one I'd helped build from nothing while raising our daughter, the one that bore my family name. He told me you'd agreed to it but wanted to stay out of the negotiations, Frank continued, each word driving the betrayal deeper. I believed him until I saw the terms. They're carving out your shares, Sydney. He's selling it out from under you. After Frank's call, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, a cold clarity washed over me. I spent the remainder of the night methodically taking screenshots, downloading financial records, and creating an encrypted folder that documented every aspect of Dylan's deception. By sunrise, my shock had hardened into resolve. I maintained perfect composure through breakfast with Emma, who stopped by to discuss wedding flowers. I smiled and nodded appropriately while my mind calculated my next moves. When she mentioned her father's video call from Boston later that day, I suggested making it a surprise for him. I'd set up the call myself as a special moment between them. After Emma left, I made a call of my own to Diane Chin. We'd met at a women's business leadership conference years ago, But I'd kept her card not for her corporate security expertise, but because she'd mentioned her background in military intelligence. I need surveillance in Paris, I told her without preamble. Discreet, immediate and thorough. Diane didn't ask unnecessary questions. Send me what you have. I'll have someone on it within hours. For the next 3 days I lived a double life. To everyone around me, I was the joyful mother of the bride handling last-minute wedding details with grace. In private moments I was building a case against my husband, reviewing Diane's operatives' findings, and securing digital evidence before Dylan could discover what I knew. I intercepted his fake texts about Boston weather delays and conference sessions, responding with concerned questions about when he might make it back for the wedding. Each lie he sent strengthened my resolve. This man, who had shared my bed, my business and my life, was planning to strip me of everything while missing our daughter's most important day. The evening before the rehearsal dinner, as I finalized seating arrangements in our dining room, Diane's latest update arrived. The photos appeared one by one on my secure tablet. Dylan emerging from the Parisian hotel in a suit I'd never seen. Dylan at a cafe with 3 men in tailored suits, papers spread between them. And then the images that stole my breath. Dylan with a woman. Tall, elegantly dressed, her hand lingering on his arm as they entered a restaurant. More photos followed, leaving no doubt their relationship went far beyond business. A quick search identified her as Vivian Laurent, corporate attorney specializing in international acquisitions. Her professional biography mentioned her work facilitating seamless company transitions between European and American owners. I zoomed in on one photo, studying the woman who represented yet another layer of my husband's betrayal. She was beautiful, yes, but it wasn't jealousy that flooded me. It was a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about an affair or embezzlement. This was calculated destruction of everything we'd built together. I closed the tablet and walked to our bedroom window, gazing out at the garden where Emma's wedding would take place in 4 days. 27 years of marriage, 25 years building our company and 24 years raising our daughter. All of it now shadowed by lies. But as I watched the sunset paint our garden in gold, something unexpected bloomed inside me. Not despair but determination. Dylan believed I was safely distracted by wedding preparations while he dismantled our life. He had no idea that his silent partner was no longer silent. Tomorrow, Emma's rehearsal dinner would proceed perfectly. I would toast to love and loyalty while secretly continuing to build my case. And when Dylan finally returned, believing his plan executed flawlessly, he would discover that I had designed a plan of my own. One that would save our company, protect our daughter, and show him precisely who he had underestimated all these years. I picked up my phone and texted him back, "We all miss you terribly. Emma's going to be so beautiful. I wish you could be here sooner." I added a heart emoji and pressed send, smiling for the first time all day. Let him think I was still in the dark. The light I was bringing would be blinding enough when the time came. Morning light filtered through the ivory curtains of Emma's childhood bedroom as I pinned the last pearl into her intricate updo. Outside, wedding vendors bustled across our property, transforming the garden into the fairy tale setting my daughter had dreamed of since she was small. "Mom, my hands won't stop shaking," Emma whispered, her reflection meeting mine in the antique vanity mirror we'd refinished together when she was 16. I squeezed her shoulders gently. "That's just all the love in you trying to escape," I said, the tenderness in my voice genuine despite the storm raging inside me. My phone buzzed on the dresser. Another message from Dylan. I checked it while pretending to adjust Emma's veil. Asterisk flight delayed again. Boston airport chaos. Don't think I'll make the ceremony. Have someone record it. So sorry. Asterisk. The practiced lie made bile rise in my throat. I'd received Diane's morning update an hour earlier. A photo of Dylan having breakfast at his Paris hotel. The newspaper on his table clearly showing today's date. In the background, the unmistakable silhouette of Vivian Laurent waiting by the door. "Dad just texted," I told Emma, keeping my voice steady. "His connection's delayed, but he's trying everything possible to get here in time." Emma's face fell momentarily before she squared her shoulders. "At least we'll have the video call for the dance." "That was genius, Mom." "Yes," I said, kissing her forehead. "Technology can be such a blessing sometimes." Between final makeup touches and the bridesmaid's champagne toast, I slipped into my study to upload another batch of financial documents to my secure cloud. My fingers worked rapidly, tagging files that showed Dylan's systematic dismantling of our company's ownership structure. 3 board members had already confirmed their discreet attendance at tonight's reception. All of them old friends who'd invested in our startup decades ago. People Dylan believed would support any decision he made. He'd soon discover how wrong he was. A crisis with the flower arrangements pulled me back to wedding duties. Through it all, the photographer's arrival, the guests gathering in the garden, the string quartet beginning their prelude, I maintained the facade of the overjoyed mother. No one could see the warrior beneath, methodically executing a plan while my daughter celebrated the beginning of her marriage as mine crumbled in secret. "Sydney." My sister Claire rushed toward me, panic in her eyes. The officiant called. His car broke down on the highway. For a moment, wedding chaos provided welcome distraction from my private battle. I calmed Claire, called our family attorney who was a licensed marriage officiant, and resolved the crisis without Emma ever knowing there had been one. Crisis management had always been my specialty, a skill that would serve me well in the days to come. The ceremony passed in a blur of beauty and emotions that were no less real for the deception happening in parallel. My tears watching Emma walk down the aisle on our longtime friend Michael's arm, a last-minute stand-in for her delayed father, were genuine. My daughter deserved this perfect day, and nothing, not even her father's betrayal, would taint it. The reception began as sunset painted the sky in hues of amber and rose. I'd scheduled Dylan's surprise video call during what would have been the father-daughter dance. Emma stood in the center of the dance floor, radiant in her gown as I positioned my tablet at just the right angle. When Dylan's face appeared on the screen, the garden fell silent. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Daddy, I wish you were here," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I'm there in spirit, princess," Dylan replied, his performance flawless. "Dance with me anyway?" As the music began and Emma swayed with the tablet in her arms, I circled them slowly, my phone camera recording what appeared to be a touching moment. But I wasn't capturing the dance. I was documenting the Eiffel Tower clearly visible through Dylan's hotel window, a landmark impossible to see from any Boston location. Throughout the reception, I wove between celebrations and conspiracies with practiced grace. While Emma cut the cake, I slipped away to meet with James Hamilton, our first investor and current board chair. "These documents are legitimate?" he asked, his face grim as he scrolled through my evidence in a quiet corner of the house. "Every file," I confirmed. "Dylan's selling 25 years of our work without authorization or board approval. The deal closes Monday." "Not anymore, it doesn't," James replied, his loyalty to me rather than Dylan instantly clear. "I'll speak with the others tonight." Discreetly. My moment came during the traditional speeches. Standing before our gathered loved ones, champagne flute in hand, I delivered words that moved the crowd to tears. "Marriage, like any worthwhile venture, thrives on equal partnership," I began, looking directly at Emma and her new husband. "It requires transparency, honesty, and the courage to face difficult truths together." My speech wove memories of Emma's childhood with wisdom about lasting relationships. But beneath the touching anecdotes lay carefully crafted phrases that only Dylan would understand. References to our early business struggles, the promises we'd made when founding Montgomery Advanced Systems, coded warnings in the language of our shared history. "Remember, darling," I said, raising my glass to Emma though my words were aimed elsewhere, "the strongest foundations are built on truth. Without it, even the most beautiful structures eventually collapse." As dancing resumed and the celebration reached its peak, I retreated to my makeshift command center in the pool house. Here, with one eye on security cameras showing the jubilant reception, I completed my most critical task. My fingers flew across the keyboard, transferring proprietary algorithms and encryption keys to servers that required my personal authentication. Systems Dylan had forgotten existed from our company's early days. "Mrs. Montgomery?" Diane Chen's voice came through my earpiece. "The target is preparing to leave his Paris location. Looks like he's headed to the airport." "Perfect timing," I replied, initiating the final protocol that would lock Dylan out of our most valuable intellectual property. "He'll be landing to quite a surprise." The screen confirmed my transfer complete just as fireworks exploded overhead, celebrating Emma's marriage. The synchronicity wasn't lost on me. Light and color blazing through darkness, marking endings and beginnings. I rejoined the party, accepting congratulations and hugging my radiant daughter as she prepared to leave for her honeymoon. No one saw the steel beneath my smile, the calculated precision with which I'd executed both a perfect wedding and the first phase of Dylan's reckoning. Emma hugged me fiercely before departing. "Thank you for making today perfect, Mom. I just wish Dad could have been here." "He made his choices, sweetheart," I said softly, the double meaning hidden in plain sight. "But don't worry. I'll make sure he understands exactly what he missed today." As their car disappeared down the driveway, guests waving sparklers in farewell, I checked my watch. Dylan would be boarding his flight home soon, believing he was returning to a wife distracted by wedding afterglow and unaware of his betrayal. He had no idea what awaited him, or that today's celebration marked not just my daughter's new beginning but mine as well. The house fell silent in the aftermath of the wedding. The caterers had cleared away the last champagne flutes, the rented chairs were stacked and gone, and even the fairy lights had been unplugged, leaving only the memory of celebration hanging in the air. I hadn't slept, but exhaustion was a luxury I couldn't afford. At 7:30 a.m. I heard a car pull into the driveway. Margot Finch, Emma's former college roommate and now head of cybersecurity at a Silicon Valley firm, arrived precisely on time, looking fresh despite the early hour. "Thanks for coming on such short notice," I said, leading her to our home office. "I know it's the day after the wedding, but with Dylan away and the office quiet, it seemed perfect for the system updates we've been putting off." Margot set her laptop bag down and eyed the coffee I'd prepared. "Mrs. Montgomery, you just pulled off the wedding of the century. I should be thanking you for the consulting gig. Besides, Emma would kill me if I didn't help her mom. If only she knew the real reason I'd called her." As Margot began her work, I watched her fingers fly across the keyboard, systematically reviewing our company's security architecture. She believed she was performing routine maintenance, strengthening firewalls, updating authentication protocols, patching potential vulnerabilities. In reality, she was building my fortress. "Your current security is actually pretty robust," she noted, "but these new protocols will require multi-factor authentication for any major system changes or data transfers. No one, not even Dylan, will be able to make significant alterations without your approval." I nodded, keeping my expression neutral. Better safe than sorry in today's digital landscape. While Margot worked, I retreated to the kitchen table with my laptop, drafting a series of emails to our most valuable clients. Each message appeared innocent. Updates on current projects, inquiries about satisfaction levels, subtle mentions of our company's long-term stability plans. Between the lines, however, I planted carefully worded phrases. "As we continue our commitment to remain a privately held American company, our dedication to maintaining current leadership and vision remains unwavering. While the market buzzes with acquisition rumors, we remain focused on organic growth." By noon, I'd sent 17 tailored messages to clients who collectively represented 73% of our annual revenue. The responses began arriving almost immediately: concern, confusion, requests for clarification about rumors they'd heard. Each reply confirmed what I suspected. Dylan had already begun preparing our client base for the ownership transition without my knowledge. "All done in here," Margot called from the office. "Want me to walk you through the changes?" I joined her for a thorough briefing, memorizing the new security protocols that would soon become my armor. After she left, promising to send her invoice to our accounting department, I turned my attention to our personal finances. The discovery hit harder than I expected. Our joint accounts showed steady withdrawals over the past 8 months. Nothing large enough to trigger my attention during my distraction with wedding planning, but substantial in aggregate. Following the digital trail led me to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Singapore and Switzerland. Dylan had meticulously constructed a financial escape route, transferring nearly 60% of our personal wealth to accounts under his sole control. I leaned back in my chair, a curious calm washing over me. This wasn't just business betrayal or infidelity. This was calculated abandonment, the dismantling of our entire shared life. My phone rang, displaying an international number I didn't recognize. "Sydney Montgomery," I answered, my voice steady despite the hurricane of emotions within. "Mrs. Montgomery, this is Marcel Laurent. The French accent was thick, the voice tense. You don't know me, but I believe we have a mutual situation. My breath caught. Laurent. As in Vivian Laurent. My estranged wife, yes. I understand she's been spending time with your husband in Paris. I moved to the window, scanning the empty driveway out of habit. How did you get my number, Mr. Laurent? I'm a financial journalist. Finding information is what I do. He paused. And I have information you might find valuable. Marcel explained that he'd been tracking Vivian's activities since their separation 6 months ago. She had a pattern, he said, targeting married executives involved in major acquisitions, positioning herself as both legal counsel and romantic interest. The relationships inevitably collapsed after deals closed, but not before she secured substantial consultation fees and personal gifts that somehow evaded tax scrutiny. I can send you everything I've documented, Marcel offered. Bank transfers, hotel records, text message transcripts from our shared cloud account she forgot to remove me from. Consider it a professional courtesy from one betrayed spouse to another. Why help me? I asked, suspicion threading through my gratitude. What do you gain? His bitter laugh carried across the Atlantic. Let's just say I've learned that revenge is a dish best served with documented evidence and public exposure. Your husband isn't her first, but perhaps you can ensure he's her last. After our call ended, Marcel's files began arriving in my encrypted email, damning evidence of the playbook Vivian had executed 3 times before with other executives. The final piece of my puzzle slid into place. I spent the afternoon in calculated productivity, scheduling an emergency company-wide meeting for 9 a.m. Monday, precisely 2 hours after Dylan's flight was scheduled to land. The official agenda cited urgent quarterly projections review and strategic planning, but my true purpose remained hidden behind corporate jargon. By evening, I'd received confirmation from 6 board members who would attend in person rather than via conference call. An unusual response that Dylan would have noticed had he not been 3,500 miles away, distracted by Vivian and his imagined triumph. As darkness fell, I methodically prepared our home for Dylan's return. I moved his personal items from our bedroom to the guest room. I printed selected photographs from Diane's surveillance and placed them in a folder on his desk. I changed the access codes to our home security system, programming in a temporary code that would allow him entry just once. The final touch was a call to our executive assistant, Patricia, who had been with us since the company's founding. Patricia, it's Sydney. I have a delicate matter to discuss. Her loyalty had never been in question. She was the first person I'd hired when we expanded beyond our garage startup, and the only staff member who had a company ownership stake besides Dylan and myself. The rumors are true, I told her. Dylan has been attempting to sell the company without board approval or my consent. I need your help tomorrow. Patricia's gasp was followed by steely determination. Just tell me what you need, Sydney. We spent an hour coordinating tomorrow's meeting logistics. Who would be seated where, which documents would be distributed, how security would handle access to the executive floor. Patricia had always excelled at battlefield strategy disguised as administrative efficiency. As midnight approached, I stood in our garden where just 24 hours earlier, Emma had danced surrounded by love and celebration. How quickly life could transform. Wedding flowers still fragrant in vases throughout the house while I prepared for corporate warfare. My phone buzzed with a text from Dylan. Landing tomorrow 7:05 a.m. Can't wait to see you and hear about the wedding. Love you. The casual deception, the easy endearment, they should have hurt. Instead they crystallized my resolve. I typed back a response that would give him no reason for suspicion. Safe travels. We have lots to catch up on. I looked up at the stars, drawing strength from their distant light. Tomorrow Dylan would return to the life he thought he controlled, to the wife he believed he had deceived. He had no idea he was walking into a reckoning of my design. I was no longer just Sydney Montgomery, the silent partner. I had become the architect of accountability, and my blueprint was flawless. Dawn broke with the time of my phone. A notification from the flight tracking app. Dylan's plane had landed 10 minutes early. I'd been awake for hours already, methodically transforming our home for his return. The space that had witnessed 27 years of our marriage was now unrecognizable. In our home office, I removed the last family photo from the wall. Emma's college graduation, the 3 of us beaming with genuine pride. I carefully placed it in a box with the others, then hung in its place an enlarged image of Dylan entering the Paris hotel with Vivian, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Beside it went financial statements highlighting the unauthorized transfers, each one bearing his digital signature. The formal notice from the board, drafted overnight and signed by 6 members, took center place above his desk, its legal language stark and unambiguous. The sale was blocked. My phone rang. "He's in a taxi," Diane reported. 20 minutes from your location. "And our other targets?" "The French investment team checked into the Grand Metropolitan 30 minutes ago. They're expecting to meet with Dylan at 11. I checked my watch. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I surveyed my transformation of the house one final time. Every room contained strategically placed evidence, documentation of his betrayal placed where he couldn't miss it, yet arranged with an almost artistic precision. This wasn't just confrontation, it was installation art with a purpose. The drive downtown felt surreal. Morning commuters surrounded me, unaware of the corporate coup taking place in their midst. I parked at the Grand Metropolitan and asked for Jean-Claude Moreau at the front desk, using the name Diane had confirmed as the lead investor. Mrs. Montgomery, the silver-haired Frenchman, greeted me in the hotel's conference room, his momentary confusion quickly masked by professional courtesy. "We were expecting your husband." "I'm sure you were," I replied, placing my portfolio on the table. "But as co-founder and equal owner of Montgomery Advanced Systems, I believe I'm better positioned to discuss its future." His colleagues exchanged glances as I removed the first document, my marriage certificate, followed by our company's founding papers showing my 50% ownership. "Gentlemen, I'll be direct. My husband has attempted to sell you something he doesn't fully own, without board approval or my consent. That alone voids any potential agreement." I slid forward a copy of the board's notice. "But there's more you should know before your company invests €230 million in what would ultimately be an invalid transaction." For 20 minutes, I methodically outlined the technological vulnerabilities Dylan had concealed during their due diligence, security flaws in our newest platform that would require millions to correct, patent challenges on 2 key components, and regulatory hurdles he'd deliberately minimized. "We were not made aware of these issues," Moreau said tightly, signaling to his team to take notes. "Nor were you made aware of this," I added, sliding forward Marcel Laurent's dossier on Vivian and her pattern of compromising acquisition deals. "Your legal representative has a concerning history." The mood in the room shifted palpably. These weren't just businessmen. They were investors with reputations at stake. By the time I stood to leave 30 minutes later, they were already on phones with their legal department in Paris. "Mrs. Montgomery," Moreau called as I reached the door. "What exactly do you want?" I turned, meeting his gaze directly. "I want what's mine, Mr. Moreau. Nothing more, nothing less." As my car pulled away from the hotel, I made the call I'd been planning for days. "Patricia, execute the press release now." At precisely 9:47 a.m. as Dylan's taxi turned onto our street, the announcement hit the business wires. Montgomery Advanced Systems announces leadership restructuring. Co-founder Sidney Montgomery assumes CEO role. I watched from the window as Dylan's phone must have erupted with notifications. He visibly stiffened in the back seat of the taxi, his head bowed over the screen. I could almost see the frantic scrolling, the dawning realization that his carefully constructed plans were collapsing in real time. His first call came before he even reached the front door. I watched on my tablet as he tried to access his executive email, only to receive the automatic notification that his credentials had been temporarily suspended pending security review. His second call went to the CFO who, as instructed, directed him to the emergency board meeting already in progress. His third call went to Vivian. That one I couldn't track, but his expression as he ended it told me everything I needed to know. I positioned myself in the living room, seated calmly on the sofa with contract documents spread before me. The sound of his key in the lock echoed through the house, followed by the security system's automated voice. "One-time access code accepted." Dylan stepped into the foyer, his designer luggage abandoned just inside the door as he took in the transformed space. His eyes darted from the surveillance photos lining the entryway to the financial statements mounted on the living room walls. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, his voice hoarse with shock. I looked up as if just noticing his arrival. "Welcome home, Dylan." How was Paris? The calmness in my voice surprised even me. Sydney, whatever you think is happening, isn't happening. I finished for him. The unauthorized sale of our company? Your affair with Vivian Laurent? Your systematic transfer of our personal assets to offshore accounts. I gestured to the evidence surrounding us. It's all quite thoroughly documented. The board has been briefed. The French investors have withdrawn. And as of 10 minutes ago, the tech press is reporting on the company's leadership restructuring. Dylan's face cycled through emotions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally, the beginning of a desperate charm offensive I knew all too well. Sid, baby, you don't understand the pressure I've been under. He moved toward me, hands spread in supplication. The market is changing. The company needed this deal to survive. I was protecting our future. By missing our daughter's wedding? I asked quietly. By transferring millions to accounts I couldn't access? By sleeping with the attorney negotiating against us? His expression hardened. You've been so wrapped up in Emma's wedding you haven't seen what's happening in our industry. We're falling behind. This acquisition was our golden parachute. Our company has record profits this quarter, I countered, sliding forward the financial reports he thought I hadn't seen. The acquisition wasn't a lifeboat. It was your exit strategy. At my expense. Dylan's composure cracked. You've always been holding me back. Playing the dutiful wife while secretly undermining my vision. The company could be twice what it is if you hadn't insisted on your cautious approach. And yet that cautious approach built the security protocols that just locked you out of your own systems, I noted, rising to face him directly. This isn't just about us, Dylan. It's about Emma's inheritance, the legacy we promised to build for her. It's about the 312 employees whose livelihoods you were gambling with. His eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, an angle, a strategy. Finding none, his desperation turned to rage. You won't get away with this. The board has seen everything, I interrupted, my voice quiet but firm. The offshore accounts, the falsified projections, the manipulated client contracts, your signature on papers you never showed me. I stepped closer, meeting his gaze. You taught me something important over these 27 years, Dylan. You taught me to always read the fine print. And the fine print in our company bylaws states that fraud by any officer triggers an automatic leadership review. Dylan's phone buzzed with incoming calls that he ignored, his face pale as the full extent of his situation dawned on him. I trusted you, I said softly. With my heart, my company, our daughter's future. You weren't just betraying a business partner. You were dismantling our entire shared life. For the first time, I saw something genuine in his eyes. Not remorse for his actions, but shock at being caught, at being outmaneuvered by the woman he had so completely underestimated. What happens now? He finally asked, his voice barely audible. I glanced at my watch. Now we have a board meeting to attend. After that. I met his eyes one final time. That depends entirely on how much more of our shared legacy you're willing to destroy. The Montgomery Advanced Systems boardroom had always intimidated visitors with its wall of windows overlooking the city skyline, the gleaming mahogany table that seated 16, and the subtle display of industry awards accumulated over 25 years. Today it felt like a courtroom. 8 board members sat ramrods straight, their expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed anger as I methodically presented the evidence projected on the wall screen. Dylan sat opposite me, his earlier bluster deflated with each damning slide. As you can see from these communications, I continued, advancing to an email thread between Dylan and Vivian, the planned sale was deliberately concealed from both the board and myself despite our fiduciary requirement for dual executive approval on any ownership changes. James Hamilton, our longest-serving board member, removed his glasses slowly. Dylan, is there anything you'd like to say in response to these allegations? Dylan leaned forward, his charm offensive switched to full power. This is being wildly mischaracterized. Sydney found preliminary discussions and jumped to conclusions. Yes, I explored options without immediate disclosure, but only to gauge market interest before bringing a fully formed proposal to the board. Preliminary discussions don't typically include signed letters of intent, I countered, displaying the document bearing his signature. Or transfers of proprietary algorithms to third parties for evaluation purposes. The room fell silent as board members reviewed copies of the technical schematics Dylan had shared with the French investors, core intellectual property that represented millions in development costs. "This constitutes corporate espionage," said Victoria Reeves, our newest board member and former federal prosecutor. "These actions expose the company to significant liability." For 2 more hours, the meeting continued in this vein. My meticulous evidence met with Dylan's increasingly desperate explanations. When the board finally called for a brief recess, Dylan cornered me near the water cooler, his voice low, urgent. "Sydney, we can fix this. Together." His hand reached for mine, the same practiced gesture he'd used countless times throughout our marriage. "We built this company from nothing. We can rebuild our marriage too." I stepped back, creating distance. "I already have the company, Dylan. And I have no interest in rebuilding something that existed only in my imagination." When the board reconvened, their decision was unanimous. Dylan would be removed as CEO effective immediately. I would assume full executive control while the company navigated this transition. As the boardroom emptied, I remained seated, arranging papers with deliberate calm while Dylan stood frozen by the doorway. "You'll be hearing from my attorneys," he finally said, a hollow threat we both recognized. "Actually, you'll be hearing from mine first." I slid a manila envelope across the polished table. "Divorce papers. Already filed." Dylan stared at the envelope without touching it. "You'll note that the terms are more than fair," I continued. "You retain your original founder's shares, though you're removed from operations. You keep the vacation house in Aspen. Your retirement accounts remain untouched." I met his eyes. "A more generous settlement than you had planned for me. Why would you do that?" Suspicion colored his voice. "Not for you," I clarified. "For Emma. Because despite everything, she loves her father and I won't make her choose sides in a scorched earth divorce. You've already taken enough from her by missing her wedding. I won't take her father too." 3 days later, Emma's honeymoon ended with her return to a family transformed. I waited until she and her husband were settled in their new apartment before I asked her to meet me for lunch alone. The upscale cafe provided enough privacy for difficult conversations. Emma's eyes, so like her father's, searched my face as I carefully explained what had happened. The planned company sale, the financial deceptions, the real reason Dylan had missed her wedding. "So he was in Paris? With another woman?" Her voice cracked slightly on the last words. "Yes," I answered simply, respecting her enough to offer truth without embellishment. Emma stared into her untouched tea. "And you're getting divorced?" "We are." Her shoulders straightened, a gesture so reminiscent of my own that it caught me off guard. "I need to talk to Dad. Hear his side." "I would expect nothing less," I said, reaching for her hand. "And whatever relationship you choose to have with him moving forward is yours to define. I won't interfere." 2 weeks after Dylan moved out, I called the first all-company meeting under my leadership. 400 employees gathered in the main atrium, uncertainty evident in their postures and whispered conversations. "Many of you have heard rumors," I began, my voice carrying through the space. "Some true, some exaggerated. Today, I want to speak directly about our path forward." For the next hour, I outlined my vision for the company's future. A restructuring that emphasized innovation, collaboration, and recognition of overlooked talent. Patricia, my loyal assistant, was promoted to chief of staff. Mark Chin, a brilliant engineer whose ideas had been repeatedly sidelined under Dylan's leadership, was appointed head of our new advanced research division. "This company was built on the principle that the best ideas can come from anywhere," I told them. "We're returning to that foundation while building something stronger, more transparent, and more inclusive." In the weeks that followed, I worked 18-hour days reimagining the company culture. I replaced the executive boardroom's imposing table with a circular design that eliminated hierarchical seating. I instituted a bi-weekly innovation forum where employees from any department could pitch concepts directly to leadership. I reviewed salaries across departments, correcting imbalances that had disadvantaged primarily female employees. The work provided purpose through the painful aftermath of betrayal. Each night I returned to a home stripped of Dylan's presence, where I was slowly reclaiming spaces that had once been ours and making them distinctly mine. The master bedroom became a sanctuary of blues and grays rather than Dylan's preferred earth tones. The home office transformed into a creative studio where I could sketch product designs like I had in the company's early days. Emma visited weekly, navigating her new relationship with both parents with a grace that made my heart ache with pride. She maintained contact with her father but made her disappointment clear. "He's trying to explain it all away," she told me over dinner one evening. "But I keep thinking about that video call during the wedding, seeing the Eiffel Tower in his window while he pretended to be in Boston." "People make mistakes," I said carefully. "Even terrible ones." She studied me with those perceptive eyes. "How are you not furious all the time?" "Who says I'm not?" I smiled slightly. But anger wouldn't restore what was taken. Only I could do that. 6 months after that fateful wedding weekend, Montgomery Advanced Systems celebrated its 25th anniversary. Under crystal chandeliers in the Grand Metropolitan Ballroom, the same hotel where I'd confronted the French investors, hundreds of employees, clients, and industry leaders gathered to mark the occasion. I stood at the podium wearing a silk dress in our company's signature blue, a delicate Parisian scarf draped around my shoulders, purchased during my first solo international business trip the previous month, where I'd secured our largest European contract to date. 25 years ago, a company was born in a garage with nothing but ambition and a belief in making technology more accessible. I began looking out at the sea of faces. Today, we honor that legacy while embracing a future limited only by our imagination and courage. As champagne glasses raised in toast, I caught sight of my reflection in the ballroom's mirrored wall, no longer the silent partner, no longer defined by my marriage, but standing firmly in my reclaimed identity. Sydney Montgomery, architect of her own rebirth.